Good evening. I was a telephone lineman when I was in the Army, and this was at the tail end of Vietnam, so consequently I was stationed in California just about the whole time. I didn't start off as a lineman though. I actually started off as an MP, quickly got in trouble, they threw me out of the MPs and made me a lineman. I was initially pretty excited about being a lineman. What I envisioned being a lineman was like, it was all based on that old Glenn Campbell song, Wichita Lineman. Remember that song? So because of that song, I romanticized I'd be climbing telephone poles across a great wide expanse of the American West. And from my perch high atop these poles, I'd soak in these incredible views. But in the Army, they bury all their line and cable. So I was digging ditches the entire time, which is very disillusioning. But I loved the platoon they assigned me to. These guys were from all over the country, from every walk of life. We had Puerto Rican guys. One was actually from Puerto Rico. The other one, Santiago, was from Queens. We had a lot of good old Southern country boys. We had Rodriguez and Ramirez. Rodriguez was from Salinas, right down the road. Ramirez, he was from El Paso. We had Russo, an Italian guy from Pittsburgh. We had some inner city guys, including Sergeant McCoy, who was from Oakland. And we even had Mo, who was from Pakistan. And what was so cool about that, we all got along. And whenever we had military exercises or war games, what would we do? We'd take all the smaller tents and jerry-rig them all together to form one big tent so we could all be in the tent together. And inevitably, a couple guys would sneak in some alcohol, some boom boxes, somebody would bring in a portable TV, which we never got reception out there on. And then late at night, we'd just sit in the tent together, listen to a little music, drink a little bit, shoot the breeze, kid around. One of these military exercises, we set up our communal tent as usual. And early that evening, there was a rumor circulating around the camp that a mountain lion had been sighted stalking the encampment. Now, the inner city guys in the platoon, they weren't very well disposed toward nature in the first place. So the prospect of a lion lurking around the campsite that night, they were really freaked out. But as we always did, that night we all hung around the tent listening to music, shooting the breeze. And then gradually the music was shut off, it got quiet, we all got into our sleeping bags and started to doze off in the pitch black. But about 45 minutes later, you could hear a couple guys on the far end of the tent. What's that? What's that? What? Damn, what? It's a motherfucking lion, excuse my language. And all hell broke loose. Guys were screaming, they were scampering, they were bumping into each other, tripping over each other in the dark, trying to get out. Guys were rushing out the main entrance in their underpants. Other guys were crawling under the tent, trying to get out. One guy or a couple guys grabbed flashlights on their way out and were whipping their flashlight beams back and forth, trying to spot this beast before we were all devoured. And meanwhile, the screaming continued inside the tent. These guys, fearing at any moment they were going to be attacked and eaten by whatever this was, supposedly the lion. We were watching all this from outside, and you could, after a while, see this tent begin to wobble. As the guys were still crawling underneath, they were still knocking into the tent poles inside. And then suddenly, the whole tent collapses, with about a third or a quarter of the platoon still inside. Now the screaming continues, it's a little bit more muffled now, but you can still hear these guys running around, but not only hear them, but you can see these little lumps moving around underneath this flattened tent as they're still desperately trying to find their way out. Well, they finally do. And we're all standing together now. Most of us in our underwear, a lot of us scared shitless. These flashlight beams still searchlighting around the tent, and we're all getting ready to run as soon as we spotlight the beast. And suddenly, we see more movement under the tent. And it's coming closer and closer to the edge. There it is. And all the flashlight beams converge onto it. And it begins to emerge, this furry, snarling, sharp-clawed monster. And we're all stepping back. Here it comes, holy shit, there it is. It's a little fluff ball of a baby raccoon. And he stands up on his hind paws. He takes a moment and stares at us for a moment or two and then waddles away. Now, it was pretty funny, but all those guys that screamed the loudest, they were still insisting, man, that wasn't it. It was a lion. I tell you, it was 600 pounds. It was huge. Look at all these claw marks, as they pointed to the scratches on their faces that they got when they fell on one of the boom boxes when tripping over Sergeant McCoy's bottle of bourbon. But you know what I thought at that moment? Looking at our collapsed tent, watching that little raccoon waddle away, listening to all these guys in their underwear claim, no, there was a man-eating lion. And all these other guys laughing so hard, they're almost peeing in their pants. I was thinking that if the rest of the Army was as intrepid, was as well organized, was as dedicated to our platoon, there was no way America could possibly win another war. But I also thought one other thing. I thought that if Americans could just get along as well as this ragtag, disparate, chaotic platoon of goofballs, America would be in pretty damn good shape. And whenever I think fondly back on those guys in that platoon, none of whom I've seen or heard from in over 40 years, I still think that same thing. If only we could all get along as well.